During Christmas dinner at my son's house, we were savoring a precious family moment when abruptly I received a call from an unknown number. I answered, and a sharp voice cut through the warm silence. "You have to get back home immediately." When I demanded to know who was speaking, the person simply repeated with unnerving conviction, "Trust me and go now," and instantly disconnected. I rose from the dinner table, the unsettling urgency of the message overriding my manners. But to truly understand why that call shattered me, you need to know what happened the day before. My name is Evelyn Moore, I'm 68 years old, a widow. The day preceding that fateful Christmas, the shrill ring of the phone sliced through my quiet afternoon. My son Daniel had just called me, his voice unnaturally cold and distant. "Mom, I've decided this year we're only going to be spending Christmas with our closest immediate family, without you." Each word hit me like a stone in my stomach. I remained paralyzed in my worn leather armchair, the cozy fire crackling behind me. The multicolored Christmas lights that twinkled outside suddenly seemed to mock my loneliness. "But son, we've always spent Christmas together. What happened? Did I do something wrong?" "Nothing happened," he replied with chilling finality. "I just want a quiet, simple holiday. Melissa is completely on board with this decision." My chest tightened. Melissa, my thoughtful daughter-in-law, who always saved the turkey wishbone for me. The same woman who had called just last month to ask for my late husband Thomas's stuffing recipe. When I finally hung up, I stayed in my chair, watching the Christmas lights blur into watery streaks from the tears gathering in my eyes. The tall grandfather clock chimed 8. Each note underlined the finality in my son's voice. Through the window, I watched snow begin to fall in heavy flakes. The neighbors' houses across the street glowed with warm yellow light. Families gathered at tables, sharing jokes and stories. The Winters family's Christmas tree shone proudly through their front window, piles of gifts beneath. "What did I do wrong, Thomas?" I whispered to my reflection in the glass. I traced patterns in the condensation, replaying every interaction with Daniel in my mind. Had I been too insistent about keeping our old traditions? Too determined to keep Thomas's memory alive? The fire died down to ash. I wandered toward the kitchen, mechanically warming a can of soup I knew I wouldn't eat. As the microwave hummed, my mind circled his words again and again. I reached for the old telephone directory, thinking I might call him back just to apologize for whatever it was. As I pulled it from the drawer, something else slipped out, Thomas's old photo album. My hands trembled as I opened it. On the first page, Daniel at 5 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a wooden toy airplane beneath our enormous Christmas tree. Another page, Thomas in our tiny kitchen, flour dusting his dark hair like snow as he rolled out sugar cookie dough. Then a photo that stopped my breath. All three of us together. Thomas holding baby Daniel, my younger self with an arm around them both. All of us beaming into the camera. We had looked invincible. I remembered a Christmas morning 15 years ago. Daniel racing down the stairs in his Superman pajamas, Thomas making cinnamon rolls, and me pretending to be surprised by their chaos. When did that sense of wonder die? I turned more pages. Each photo twisted the knife deeper. There was Thomas's last Christmas 5 years ago, chemotherapy already weakening his hands, but he still insisted on wrapping every gift himself. Daniel came less and less that year, always too busy with work. "Evelyn, you have to keep the family together," Thomas had whispered during his final week. "Promise me you won't let distance grow between you and Daniel." I had promised. Had I failed so completely? I closed the album, but carefully removed the picture of Thomas laughing in the kitchen. I placed it on my nightstand, so his smile would be the first thing I saw when I woke. As I slipped into bed, his empty side felt even larger than usual. Losing Daniel on top of losing Thomas made the room feel twice as hollow. That was the night before the Christmas that changed everything. Morning light struggled through the curtains, casting gray shadows across my breakfast table. The newspaper lay beside a bowl of cooling oatmeal as I scanned the obituaries, a habit that had become painfully routine with age. The electronic chime of the phone shattered the quiet. After last night's conversation, any unexpected call felt like a threat. My fingers trembled when I saw Daniel's name. "Hello," I answered more cautiously than I meant to. "Mom." This time there was a flicker of warmth in that one word. "I want to apologize for last night. I was out of line." Relief rushed through me so quickly I had to grip the table to steady myself. "Son, I'm so relieved you called. I thought I had done something terrible." "No, Mom. You did nothing wrong. I was just stressed about work and took it out on you. Melissa reminded me how important our traditions are. We want you to come to Christmas dinner after all." "Of course I'll be there," I said, joy bubbling up like champagne. "I'll prepare your father's turkey recipe and make the cranberry sauce." "That sounds perfect. Please bring everything you usually make," he said. Then he paused. "Melissa is really excited. The kids have been asking for more stories from Grandma Evelyn." Something about his enthusiasm sounded rushed, rehearsed, like he was checking boxes off a script. "Daniel, what made you change your mind so quickly? Yesterday you were so certain." "I realized my mistake, that's all. Have to go, work's calling. We'll see you Christmas Day around noon." "Wait, son, can we talk?" "I love you, Mom. See you soon." The call disconnected. For a moment pure joy flooded me. Christmas was saved. My family restored. But in the silence that followed, doubt seeped in like a draft under a door. His words were right, but they felt hollow, like an actor reading lines. I walked to the kitchen window. Overnight snow had turned the backyard into a white dream. The Miller kids next door were already building a snowman, their laughter drifting faintly through the glass. Normal families doing normal things on a normal December morning. "Maybe I'm overthinking," I muttered to Thomas's picture. "Maybe grief is making me suspicious." Still the unease remained. The next 3 days blurred into determined preparation. On December 22nd, I woke with an energy I hadn't felt since Thomas died. I hummed carols while making coffee, my notepad filled with menu plans and grocery lists. "Turkey, cranberry sauce, Thomas's stuffing," I murmured, tapping the pen. "Everything has to be perfect." At the butcher shop on Oak Street, holiday shoppers crowded every aisle. When my turn came, I leaned over the counter like a woman on a mission. "I need your best turkey," I told the butcher. "It's for a very special family gathering." He handed me a magnificent bird, plump and glossy. I paid without a second thought, already imagining carrying it into Daniel's kitchen, just like the old days. On December 23rd, I braved them all. At the toy store I found a model airplane kit for Ethan, a vintage Cessna like the planes Thomas used to point out to Daniel. For Lily, I chose a wooden art set with neatly arranged colored pencils, a little rainbow in a box. That night, I gathered herbs from my small winter garden for Thomas's marinade. His recipe, written in his tidy handwriting, stood against the sugar bowl as I minced garlic and plucked rosemary. "Thomas, I hope I remember this right," I whispered to his photo on the sill. "It has to be perfect." The marinade came together into a fragrant green paste. Garlic, rosemary, thyme, olive oil, and his secret, a splash of white wine. I slid my fingers under the turkey's skin, massaging the mixture in. Felt almost like a prayer. Christmas Eve morning arrived gray, but my mood stayed bright. I wrapped the children's gifts with military precision, tied satin bows exactly in the center. My best Christmas shirt was ironed and waiting, my favorite perfume ready like emotional armor. As evening approached, a current of unease crept back in. Daniel still hadn't called to confirm details. What time was I supposed to arrive? Did they need me to bring wine? Had I forgotten some allergy? My neighbor, Harold Lewis, appeared at the kitchen window, waving. "Evelyn, any big plans tomorrow?" he called through the glass. "Christmas dinner with Daniel and his family," I replied, opening the window a crack. "We're going to be a real family again." Something flickered in Harold's expression, a shadow of worry, but he only nodded. "That's good news. You deserve that," he said. After he left, his concerned eyes stayed in my mind like a stain. Lying in bed that night, everything was ready. The turkey in the fridge, gifts by the door, clothes laid out. Everything except my heart. It pounded against my ribs like it wanted to warn me. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, repeating to myself, "Tomorrow will be perfect. It has to be." Christmas morning dawned bright and cold. The snow outside glittered like scattered diamonds. I dressed with ceremonial care, smoothing my blouse more times than necessary, brushing my silver hair back and spraying a hint of perfume. The turkey carrier felt heavy as I lifted it into the car, next to the bags of presents. At the front door I paused and looked back into my house, silent, familiar, waiting for me to return. The old clock ticked in the hallway, a steady reminder of every Christmas that had come before. "Today will be different," I told Thomas's photo on the wall. "Today we heal." The roads to Daniel's house were lined with lights and inflatable snowmen. Each house looked like the front of a Christmas card. My chest tightened with both hope and fear. When I pulled up, their house was glowing. Lights framed the windows. A wreath hung perfectly centered on the door. Before I could knock, the door flew open and Melissa appeared, flour on her red sweater like powdered sugar. "Evelyn, thank goodness you're here," she exclaimed. "Come in before you freeze." The warmth hit me immediately. The smell of cinnamon, pine, roasting vegetables. Christmas music drifted from hidden speakers. Then Ethan barreled toward me, eyes shining. "Grandma Evelyn, did you bring presents? Can we open them now?" "Patience," Melissa laughed, taking the turkey from my hands. "This thing weighs a ton. What did you do to it?" "The secret is Thomas's marinade," I explained, unwinding my scarf. 24 hours of garlic, rosemary, and love. Helen and Charles Grant, Melissa's parents, greeted me with hugs. They asked about my health, my hobbies, and whether I'd taken up any new classes. Their warmth felt genuine, like a blanket around my shoulders. Daniel appeared last. He straightened his tie as he walked in. His smile practiced. It reached his mouth, but not his eyes. "Thanks for coming, Mom," he said, kissing my cheek. "It means a lot." "Thank you for inviting me," I replied, studying his face. For a split second I thought I saw tension there. Then Ethan grabbed my hand. "Come see the tree, Grandma." The dining room looked like something out of a magazine. White tablecloth, candles, Melissa's best china. My turkey sat in the middle, golden and majestic. "Would you like to carve it, Evelyn?" Melissa asked, offering me the electric knife. "You're the artist here." I carved with steady hands, watching each slice fall apart tenderly. The aroma filled the room. People murmured compliments with their mouths already full. Conversation flowed like wine. Charles asked about my retirement projects. Helen praised my cooking with almost comical enthusiasm. The children talked about school, friends, and the Christmas play. Even Daniel seemed more relaxed, telling work stories that sounded almost natural. But I saw the way he checked his watch when he thought no one noticed, the tiny flinch when a notification buzzed. His laughter hit all the right notes, but underneath it was something hollow. "Grandma, can we open gifts now?" Lily asked after dessert, clutching her napkin. "Please," Ethan added, bouncing in his seat. In the living room, wrapping paper soon covered the carpet like colorful snow. Ethan gasped when he saw the airplane kit. "A Cessna like at the air show. Can we build it together?" "Of course," I smiled. "That's what grandmas are for." Lily opened her art set and hugged it. "I'm going to draw our whole family," she said. "Even great-grandpa Thomas, so he's still with us." The room fell quiet for a moment. Thomas's absence suddenly felt by everyone. It wasn't the sharp pain it used to be, though. It was softer, like a gentle touch on the shoulder. "He would have loved this," I said, my voice rougher than I intended. As evening settled in, the warmth of the meal wrapped around us. Charles and I debated baseball. Helen helped Melissa in the kitchen. The children sprawled on the rug with their new treasures, laughter rising and falling. I loosened my collar and leaned back in the armchair. For the first time in a long time, I felt almost complete. Then my phone vibrated in my pocket. The phone vibrated once, then again, insistent. I tried to ignore it, not wanting to break the spell of the evening, but the buzzing felt like an alarm only I could hear. "Excuse me," I told Charles, standing up. "I'll be just a minute." The small powder room off the hallway offered a bubble of privacy. Behind the closed door, the sounds of Christmas, laughter, music, clinking dishes became muffled. My phone screen glowed. Unknown number. I almost declined it immediately. Who calls on Christmas except telemarketers and wrong numbers? But when it stopped and started ringing again, irritation nudged me to answer. "Hello," I said sharply. "Who is calling on Christmas? You need to go home. Immediately." The voice sliced through me like ice. A man's voice. Urgent, controlled. "I'm sorry, who is this? What are you talking about?" "That doesn't matter right now," he replied. "Just go home. Now." My reflection stared back at me in the mirror. Face paler, eyes wider, worry carving new lines. "I don't understand. Is something wrong? Is there a fire? A gas leak? Trust me and go now," he repeated, then hung up. I stared at my phone, heart pounding loud enough to drown out the music from the living room. The stranger's voice carried a conviction that squeezed the air from my lungs. I pictured my quiet house in the dark. My books, my photos, Thomas's things. What if there really was something wrong? A break-in? Fire? I thought about my insurance, about how long it would take to replace anything, about the things that could never be replaced at all. "Mom, you okay in there?" Daniel's voice floated through the door, perfectly timed. "Just a minute," I called back. I braced my hands on the sink and took a deep, steadying breath. The rational part of my brain said, "This is absurd. It's probably a prank. This is your first real Christmas with them in years. Don't ruin it." But something deeper, older, primal was screaming danger. When I opened the bathroom door, the warmth of the house felt wrong. Too bright. Too loud. Like a stage set. "Everything okay, Mom?" Daniel asked, eyes searching my face. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw something flicker there. Fear? Annoyance? Calculation? "I need to go home," I said, my voice harsher than I intended. "There's an emergency." Someone called. "Something is wrong at the house." The room fell silent. Only the sound of Ethan's airplane whooshing through the air broke the stillness. "What kind of emergency?" Melissa asked, dish towel in her hands. "I don't know yet," I admitted, fumbling with my coat. "But I can't ignore it." Daniel stood up quickly. Concern painted perfectly across his features. "Who called you? Why didn't they explain? Maybe you should sit down, Mom. You look shaken." For a split second I studied his face. His eyes, his jaw, the way he held his shoulders. It was all so familiar, yet suddenly I couldn't read him at all. "I'm sorry to leave like this," I said, bending to kiss the children. "Thank you for a lovely dinner. Will you come back?" Lily asked, her lip trembling. "We'll see, sweetheart," I whispered, brushing her hair back. The cold air outside slapped my face as I hurried to the car. In the rearview mirror, I saw them all huddled in the doorway. Melissa hugging herself against the cold, the children pressed to the window, and Daniel standing slightly apart, his silhouette dark. I started the engine. As I pulled away, the car radio played Silent Night. But nothing about this night felt silent or holy. My hands strangled the steering wheel. The stranger's words echoed in my head. "Trust me and go now." I drove faster than I should have. Empty intersections flashed past, yellow lights becoming green in my mind. Every house I passed, every lit tree in a window, felt like another world entirely, one I no longer belonged to. Could it really just be a break-in? Some teenager who saw an empty house and an opportunity. But how would a stranger know my number, know that I wasn't home, know exactly when to call? And why did Daniel look almost relieved when I said I was leaving? I shook my head, angry at myself. "Stop it, Evelyn. That's your son. But the doubt wouldn't leave. By the time I turned onto my street, my heart felt like it was lodged in my throat. My street was almost completely dark. Christmas Eve in our quiet suburb meant most people were inside. Curtains closed, fireplaces lit. My house stood at the end like a shadow. Something felt wrong before I even saw it. Instead of pulling into my driveway, I parked behind Harold's old oak tree. Some instinct told me to stay hidden. The engine ticked softly as it cooled, the only sound in the cold night. I stepped out into the freezing air, every nerve awake. The familiar shapes of mailboxes and bushes looked different, stretched into threatening silhouettes. Then I saw it. The small basement window on the side of my house, usually reflective, was a black hole. I walked closer, heart hammering, and saw the glitter of broken glass scattered in the snow like shards of ice. Someone had broken in. My fingers felt clumsy as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. "There is someone inside my house," I whispered. "I can see their flashlight in the upstairs bedroom. They're moving from room to room." The dispatcher took my address and told me to stay far away until officers arrived. 15 minutes. 15 minutes felt like an eternity. I hung up, opened my trunk, and fumbled for anything heavy. My fingers closed around a cold, solid object, an old tire iron from a flat tire last spring. Its weight was oddly comforting. "This is my home," I muttered, gripping it tighter. "My life." I crept along the side of the house, using bushes and Christmas decorations as cover. The broken basement window gaped at me, its jagged edges pointing inward. Inside the house, a flashlight beam swept across my bedroom ceiling. It was slow, deliberate. Whoever was in there wasn't panicking. They were searching. My jaw clenched. This wasn't a frantic teenager grabbing a TV and running. This was methodical. The beam moved from bedroom to hallway, then toward the room where I kept important papers. Bank files. Thomas's documents. The folder with all our investments. They're not after jewelry, I realized. They're after information. Footsteps thudded softly through the floor above. I could hear drawers opening, papers rustling. Each sound felt like fingers in my life, digging through years of memories. Rage rose in my chest, hot enough to melt the snow. I pressed my back against the cold foundation near the broken window, tire iron raised. The flashlight drifted downstairs, then disappeared. The basement light flicked on, then off again. Whoever it was didn't want to be clearly seen from outside. Papers rustled more loudly now. A chair scraped across the concrete. My filing cabinet, Thomas's cabinet, was being emptied. The beam grew closer to the window. I tightened my grip until my knuckles ached. A dark canvas bag appeared first, pushed out through the opening, landing in the snow with a heavy thud. Paper spilled out, a flash of bank logos, legal letterheads, and something that looked like a stock certificate. Then a leg emerged, cautiously testing the frame. Then another. Finally, the upper body wriggled through, breath puffing in white clouds. "Kevin," I heard myself say before I even meant to. Kevin Price, my son's lifelong friend, straightened up in my yard, clutching the bag stuffed with my life. His hat was pulled low, and a scarf covered half his face, but I would have recognized that slouched posture anywhere. "Kevin." My voice came out sharper, colder than the air itself. He whirled around so fast he almost slipped. The bag dropped from his hands, paper scattering across the snow like dirty confetti. Bank statements, envelopes, photocopies, and unmistakably Thomas's will. "Evelyn," he stammered, raising his hand slowly. I didn't want to do this." I stepped closer, tire iron still in my hand, though part of me forgot I was holding it. My focus was fixed on his face. "Not your idea," I asked quietly. "Then whose?" He backed up until he hit the wall of my house, nowhere left to go. The flashlight lay on the ground, its beam shining across the mess of documents. "You weren't supposed to be here," he blurted. "He said you'd be at dinner for hours. He said you'd never know." "Who, Kevin?" I demanded. "Who said that?" But even as I asked, the answer slid into place in my chest like a piece of ice. Daniel knew you'd be at his house, Kevin said, his eyes glossing over with tears. He planned the whole dinner specifically so I could get in and grab the papers. The tire iron slipped from my fingers, landing in the snow with a dull thud. My hands suddenly felt empty. My son sent you, I whispered. Kevin nodded miserably. He needs the money, Evelyn. He's in deep trouble. Gambling debts, bad investments. He found out about Thomas's Boeing stock, about what the will says. He said you were going to give it all away, to charity. He said it was family money, and that you'd understand later. I bent down and picked up one of the papers. The Boeing logo stared up at me from the stock certificate. Thomas's name printed neatly in ink. Decades of saving and sacrifice frozen on a single sheet. All those nights he graded papers late into the evening. All the small luxuries we skipped so he could invest, just a little more for the future. He was going to steal Thomas's life savings, I said slowly, so he could pay off his gambling debts. Kevin swallowed. He said you'd never even notice. That old people don't need that much anyway. Those words hit me harder than the winter air. Years of my life dismissed as irrelevant. Thomas's legacy reduced to a number on a balance sheet. Somewhere in the distance, sirens began to wail, growing louder. That call, I said. Was that you? Kevin shook his head. No. That was Harold, your neighbor. He called me right after he tried to reach you. Said he saw a light in your bedroom and knew you were at your son's. He put two and two together. My phone lit up in my pocket again, vibrating insistently. Daniel. He's probably wondering why you're not still at dinner, Kevin muttered. He's going to be furious when he finds out I got caught. The sirens grew louder, red and blue lights flashing at the end of the street. What did you think you were doing, Kevin? I asked, voice trembling. Breaking into a widow's house on Christmas Eve. He choked back a sob. I'm not a good person, Evelyn. I was desperate. He promised he'd fix everything if I helped. Said no one would get hurt. No one would get hurt, I repeated, looking at Thomas's will soaked through with snow. He hurt everyone. Police cars turned into the street, their headlights sweeping across my yard. The scene must have looked surreal. An older woman standing in the snow in her Christmas clothes, shattered glass, a man pinned against her house, and papers blowing in the wind. You're going to have to tell them everything, I said, straightening up as the first officer approached. Every single thing. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. Daniel calling. This time I had witnesses. 2 police cars pulled up in front of my house, lights flashing silently now that they'd arrived. The officers stepped out with the calm efficiency of people who had seen almost everything. Ma'am, are you the homeowner who called 911? The female officer asked, approaching me. Her breath made soft white clouds in the air. Yes, I said, pointing at Kevin. My name is Evelyn Moore, and that man broke into my house. Kevin lifted his hands even higher, his shoulders slumping. The second officer moved toward him, hand near his holster but not drawing. Sir, turn around slowly. Hands behind your back. The click of handcuffs sounded too loud in the cold night. What exactly did he take? The female officer asked. I bent down and picked up a damp document. He took financial papers. My late husband's will. Boeing stock certificates worth over $2 million. Banking information. He was going through my filing cabinet. $2 million. Her eyebrows shot up as she shone her flashlight over the certificate. That's definitely grand larceny territory. A familiar voice called out from behind us. Evelyn, is that you? Harold shuffled over in his robe and slippers, hugging himself against the cold. His gray hair stuck up in wild tufts. Harold, I said, suddenly understanding. Was that you who called me? He nodded, glancing at the officers. Around 9, I saw a light moving in your bedroom. I knew you were at Daniel's for dinner. Didn't look right. I checked the neighborhood directory for your number, But when you didn't answer, I called the police instead. You didn't just save my furniture, I said, squeezing his arm. You saved Thomas's legacy. The officer listened intently. So this wasn't random. Mr. Price here knew the house would be empty. He nodded. He's my son's friend. My son invited me to Christmas dinner tonight after originally uninviting me. He planned the whole thing so I'd be gone. Kevin closed his eyes, tears streaking his cheeks. In the back of the patrol car, his silhouette looked small, swallowed by the darkness. My phone buzzed again. Daniel. Should I answer it? I asked the officer. He's called twice. Go ahead, she said. Let's see what he says. I pressed accept and hit speaker. Hello, Daniel, I said, forcing my voice to sound calm. Mom, where are you? He demanded, the perfect amount of worry in his tone. We're all worried sick. You've been gone for an hour. Are you okay? I glanced at the officer, who raised an eyebrow. I'm on my way back now, Daniel, I said. We need to have a serious conversation. I could almost hear his mind racing. You sound different, he said slowly. Is everything all right? Everything will become very clear soon, I replied. I'll see you shortly. Before he could say more, I hung up. The officers finished their questions. Kevin, now sitting in the back of the car, began telling his side of the story, voice breaking as he mentioned Daniel's debts, the plan, the timing of dinner. I gathered Thomas's documents from the snow, smoothing them out as best I could. Each page felt heavier than paper should. We'll need you to come to the station tomorrow to give a full statement, the officer said, handing me a card. Mr. Price will be charged with breaking and entering, attempted grand larceny, and whatever else fits once we review everything. Harold walked me back to my car as the patrol cars pulled away with Kevin in the back seat, his face lit by the red and blue lights. Are you sure you want to go back there tonight? Harold asked. That conversation won't be easy. I looked at my house, the broken window, the crooked wreath, the snow disturbed by our footprints. Then I looked at the envelope with Thomas's will in my hands. Some conversations, I said quietly, can't wait until morning. I got into my car, placed the documents on the passenger seat, and started the engine. The radio was still playing Christmas songs, but I turned it off. Tonight wasn't about Christmas anymore. It was about truth. Daniel's house glowed warmly as I pulled into the driveway. From the outside, it looked like the perfect holiday card. Lights twinkling, silhouettes moving inside, a tree in the window. The documents beside me felt like evidence in a trial. I took them carefully in my arms, straightened my shoulders, and walked to the front door. For the first time in my life, I didn't bother to knock. This was my son's house, but it was also my battlefield now. The door opened before my hand reached the knob. Melissa stood there, eyes wide. Evelyn, she breathed. Are you okay? What happened? Behind her, I saw Charles lowering his magazine, Helen setting aside her crossword. The children sat on the rug with their toys, the tree lights blinking merrily beside them. Ask your husband what happened, I said, brushing past her into the living room. I set the documents down on the coffee table with deliberate care, spreading them out so every name, every number, every logo was visible. Thomas's will, the Boeing certificates, bank statements. Daniel walked in from the hallway, his tie loosened now, his expression initially relieved. Mom, thank God you're back. We were just about to call the police. What on earth? He stopped when he saw the papers. What is this? He asked, his voice suddenly dry. These, I said evenly, are the documents that Kevin just tried to steal from my house. He is currently sitting in the back of a police car on his way to the station. Melissa's hand flew to her mouth. Steal from your house. On Christmas Eve? Charles asked, standing. Daniel stared at the papers like they were wild animals that might bite. Mom, I don't know what you're talking about. These are Thomas's will and his Boeing stock certificates, I continued, not raising my voice but letting each word land. Kevin broke into my house because he knew I would be here tonight. He knew I would bring a turkey and presents, and that I would stay for hours. I looked directly at my son. He knew because you told him, Daniel. Because you planned it with him. The room went so quiet I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. Robert, Melissa started, then corrected herself. Daniel, tell me this isn't true. Daniel's face was a mask of outrage and panic. Mom, that's insane. Kevin would never. Kevin already told the police everything, I cut in. About your gambling debts. About the $200,000 you owe. About how you found out Thomas left me over $2 million in Boeing stock. And how furious you were when you learned I planned to donate it to veterans programs and scholarships. Melissa's knees buckled, and she sat down heavily on the sofa. Helen's crossword slid from her lap to the floor. That money is our inheritance, Daniel blurted. You can't just give it away to strangers. I can do whatever I want with my money, I said. With Thomas's money. He trusted me with it. And instead of talking to me, you chose to rob me. Ethan looked up from his airplane, confusion clouding his face. Dad. What's going on? Lily's hand tightened around her art set, eyes darting between us. You used Christmas, I continued, my voice shaking now. You used your wife's kindness, your children's excitement. You used my love for Thomas and our old traditions as cover for a felony. Melissa covered her face with both hands, her shoulders shaking. How long? She whispered through her fingers. How long have you been lying to me? Daniel didn't answer. Charles stepped forward, his jaw set. How much do you owe, Daniel? 200,000, he finally muttered. Bad investments. A little gambling. It got out of control. So your solution, Charles said, was to steal your mother's retirement. To have your friend break into her home while she carved turkey for your children. Daniel sat down, his shoulders collapsing as if the strings that held him upright had been cut. I didn't want to hurt anyone, he said weakly. I just needed time. I was going to put it back. You were going to put back $2 million. Yes. With what? Magic. The children stared at their father as if seeing a stranger. I turned to them, softening my voice. Your father made very bad choices, I said gently. Choices that hurt people who trusted him. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Ethan clutched his airplane. Melissa lowered her hands. Her face was wet, but her voice was steel. I married a man I thought was honest, she said. I will not stay married to a criminal who uses his own family as cover for theft. Daniel's head snapped toward her. Melissa, don't say that in front of the kids. You did this in front of the kids, she replied. On Christmas. I gathered the papers from the table, stacking them neatly. I tucked Thomas's will carefully into its folder. The Boeing stock will go to the causes Thomas believed in, I said. Veterans, education, community programs. You tried to turn his legacy into a quick fix for your mistakes. I walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. Melissa, you and the children are always welcome in my home, I said firmly. You are innocent in this. Then I stepped out into the cold, leaving behind the ruined Christmas and the wreckage of what used to be my family. The next morning, pale winter light filtered through my kitchen window, falling across Thomas's rescued documents spread neatly on the table beside his framed photo. I cradled my coffee mug, the one he gave me years ago that said "World's Best Husband" in fading letters, and reread the stock certificates with new eyes. Each date was a chapter of our life together. September 1995, when Boeing was struggling and Thomas whispered, "This is when real believers buy." March 2001, after the world changed overnight and everyone panicked. December 2008, during the financial crisis, when he said, "We've survived worse. We'll survive this too." He had never been rich. Just a schoolteacher with a stubborn faith in the future. And in me. My phone rang. Melissa. Evelyn. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice raw from crying. "I didn't know about any of this. The debts. Kevin. The stocks. Nothing." "I know," I said softly. "You've always been kind to me. This isn't your fault." I'm filing for divorce, she said abruptly. I can't raise Ethan and Lily with a father who planned a robbery against their grandmother. They deserve better. You do too, I replied. You're welcome in my life. Always. After we hung up, I stared at Thomas's photograph. You would have been heartbroken by his choices, I whispered. But proud that the truth came out. A knock at the door broke my thoughts. Harold stood on the porch, holding a thermos in one hand and a plate of leftover cookies in the other. How are you really? He asked once inside, settling at the table across from me. It hurts, I admitted. It feels like I lost Thomas all over again. But the lies are gone now. That's something. You did the right thing, he said firmly. The truth matters, even when it tears things apart. We talked about practicalities. Changing locks, reinforcing the basement window, installing an alarm system. Things I should have done long ago, but had delayed because, deep down, I still wanted to believe I was safe. What will you do with all this? Harold asked, tapping the stack of certificates. I'll do what Thomas wanted, I said. Help people. Veterans, students, families who actually care for each other. People who know the value of sacrifice. He nodded slowly. He'd like that. After he left, I called my lawyer and scheduled a meeting to revise my will and add extra protections to my accounts. I removed Daniel's name from every legal document. If he wanted to rebuild trust someday, it wouldn't be through my money. The house felt different now. Not as oppressively lonely, but clean. The lies had been stripped away like old wallpaper. I was 68 years old with enough money to be comfortable, a loyal neighbor, a daughter-in-law with integrity, and 2 grandchildren who would soon need new role models. My phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. The kids want to know when they can visit Grandma Evelyn again. I smiled, my heart unclenching just a bit. Whenever they want, I typed back. We're going to build new traditions. A week later, I sat in my lawyer's office, Thomas's file open on the polished desk. The room smelled of old books and strong coffee. Mrs. Moore, my lawyer said, adjusting his glasses. Are you absolutely sure you want to remove Daniel as a beneficiary? Yes, I replied. My son chose greed over family. He tried to steal what Thomas saved. He doesn't get to benefit from that. We reworked the will together. The Boeing stock would be divided between a veterans organization Thomas admired, a scholarship fund for future teachers, and a local community center that helps struggling families. We can name the scholarship after Thomas, my lawyer suggested. The Thomas More Teaching Fellowship. I swallowed the lump in my throat. He would have loved that. After the meeting, I drove to the community center Thomas and I had volunteered at years ago. Kids ran through the halls with worn backpacks. Staff hurried past with clipboards. An older woman at the reception desk smiled. Can I help you? My husband and I used to bring Christmas baskets here, I said. I'd like to make a donation. A significant one. In his memory. She blinked then grinned. Well, Mrs. Moore. Evelyn Moore. Her face lit up. Oh my goodness. I remember you. Thomas. You brought the best pies. We talked about programs they wanted to start. After-school tutoring, a small library, mental health support. Every idea felt like a seed Thomas would have happily watered. That night, back home, I took down the old fading wreath from my front door and replaced it with a new one. Simple green, with a small wooden sign that said welcome. Not Merry Christmas. Just welcome. Welcome to a new life. One built on truth instead of pretending. It was mid-January when Ethan and Lily came to stay with me for the weekend. Snow still clung to the corners of the sidewalks, but the holidays were already fading in most people's minds. For us, they would never be quite the same. Can we build the airplane now? Ethan asked as soon as he dropped his backpack in the hall. Of course, I said. But first, help Grandma carry in the groceries. We're making hot chocolate and cinnamon rolls. Lily's eyes sparkled. Like great-grandpa Thomas used to make? Exactly, I smiled. In the kitchen we baked together. Flour dusted my counters, their noses, and somehow even the ceiling. I told them stories about Thomas. The way he loved to dance with a mixing spoon as a microphone, the way he would throw in extra chocolate chips when he thought I wasn't looking. After snack time, Ethan spread out the airplane pieces on the dining table. Lily sat beside us with her sketchbook, drawing the three of us together. Me, her, Ethan, and a faint outline of Thomas in the clouds above. "Dad says he's sorry," Ethan said quietly as he aligned the wings with my help. "But he also says you overreacted." Paused, then chose my words carefully. "Sometimes grown-ups don't want to admit how badly they've messed up," I said. "It's easier to blame someone else than to face what they did." "Will he go to jail?" Lily asked, her pencil slowing. "I don't know yet," I answered honestly. "But whatever happens, he has to live with his choices. We can't change what he did. We can only choose who we want to be." "Who do you want to be, Grandma?" Ethan asked. I smiled softly. "A woman who keeps her promises." "Thomas," to herself. "And now to you." We built the airplane carefully, piece by piece. It took longer than Ethan expected, but he didn't give up. When it was finally done, he held it up proudly. "Grandpa would have loved this," he said. "Yes," I replied. "He would have." That night, after they fell asleep in my guest room, no longer Daniel's room, but the kids' room, I stood in the hallway for a long time, listening to their breathing. Family, I realized, isn't just blood. It's who shows up, who tells the truth, who tries to do better even when it hurts. Months passed. Winter slowly loosened its grip, and small green shoots began to push through the soil in my garden. The legal case against Kevin moved forward. He pleaded guilty, cooperated fully, and the judge took his desperation and confession into account. He would serve time, but less than he might have. Daniel, under pressure and scrutiny, finally faced his own debts. Melissa's divorce proceedings moved along quietly but steadily. He never called me again. Sometimes that sting felt fresh. Other times it felt like an old scar I'd learned to live with. One evening, near the end of March, I sat at my kitchen table with a letter from the veterans organization I'd chosen. "Dear Mrs. Moore," it read, "because of your generosity, 3 former service members have begun a job training program this month. Your husband's legacy is already changing lives." Next to it lay a brochure from the university. The first 3 recipients of the Thomas More Teaching Fellowship. Young, hopeful faces, ready to step into classrooms and shape future generations the way Thomas once had. I looked up at his photo above the mantel. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel only loss when I saw his face. I felt partnership. "We did it, Thomas," I said softly. "Your money isn't rescuing someone from a gambling debt. It's rescuing futures." My phone buzzed with a video from Melissa. Ethan and Lily stood in their small new apartment's living room, holding up a drawing. It was our family. Me in the center, them on either side, and Thomas in the sky above, watching over us. Daniel was off to the side, drawn faintly, almost faded. "Grandma," Lily's voice narrated, "this is our new family portrait. The real one." Tears blurred my vision, but they weren't the hot tears of betrayal anymore. They were the warm tears of healing. In the end, Daniel had made his choice. And I had made mine. I chose my dignity over his demands. Truth over comfort. Integrity over silence. Thomas's real inheritance wasn't the Boeing stock. It was the values he lived by. Hard work, honesty, generosity. Those things now lived on in scholarships, in veterans training, in community programs. And, most importantly, in 2 grandchildren who were learning the difference between love and manipulation. When I think back to that Christmas, to Daniel's carefully set table and Kevin's trembling hands in the snow, I no longer feel only pain. I feel a strange kind of gratitude. Because the night my son tried to steal my future was the same night I finally took it back. And if you were in my place, would you have the courage to say, "Enough," even to your own child, and start over? That answer is yours alone. But I hope my story reminds you of this. Money can be stolen. Houses can be broken into. Even holidays can be ruined. But your dignity, that's yours. Until you decide to give it away.